and welcome to the very first episode of Mixed Media Reviews Season 5. My name is Kelsey, and today I'm going to be talking about a bunch of books. This week we'll be diving into all the books I got from Comic-Con. I came home with 16 books from Comic-Con this past July, so I'm just going to try to give a brief summary of each book, some of which have not come out yet, but we'll try to go kind of quick because that is a lot of books. And yes, it was a lot to carry around. So yeah, let's just dive right in. First up is all of the YA that I got, all the young adult. First is A Wilderness of Stars by Shea Ernshaw, I think is how you say her name. This I got from a mystery bag from Simon & Schuster. They had a few different options you could choose from the young adult, from the regular fiction, and it was like a book that you could buy for like $30 or so, and it was like 3 or 4 books. And I did a couple of those. So this one is where I got that. However, I did buy it actually a couple years ago, I think. So I have it in my collection already, so I'll probably give this one away. But that's okay. A Wilderness of Stars is a book. And here's the summary. In this magical romance from the #1 New York Times best-selling author of Long Live the Pumpkin Queen, an illness cursing the land forces a teen girl astronomer to venture across the wilderness in search of the star's message that will hopefully save them all. When all is lost, look to the stars. Vega has lived in the valley her whole life, forbidden by her mother to leave the safety of its borders because of the unknown threats waiting for her in the wilds beyond. But when Vega sees an omen in the sky, one she cannot ignore, she is forced to leave the protective boundaries of the valley. Yet the outside world is much more terrifying than Vega could ever have imagined. People are gravely sick. They lose their eyesight or their hearing just before they lose their lives. But Vega has a secret. She's the last astronomer, a title carried from generation to generation, and she's the only one who understands the knowledge of the stars, knowledge that could hold the key to a cure. So when locals spot the tattoo on Vega's neck in the shape of a constellation, the mark of an astronomer, chaos erupts. Fearing for her life, Vega is rescued by a girl named Cricket, who leads her to Noah, a boy marked by his own mysterious tattoos. On the run from the men hunting her, Vega sets out across the plains with Cricket and Noah in search of a fabled cure kept secret by the astronomers. But as the line between friends and protectors begins to blur, Vega must decide whether to safeguard the sacred knowledge of the astronomers, or if she will risk everything to save them all. This was in a YA romantasy, I think, one. So there is romance in it. I've also seen it described as sci-fi, as like soft sci-fi. So yeah, that's what that one's about. The next ones I got, the author was actually there doing a signing, so I bought Belladonna and Foxglove by Adeline Grace. I believe the third one is about to come out, or perhaps has come out since Comic-Con. But I finally bought the first 2 because she was doing a signing, and I figured, why not? So this one is the New York Times bestselling author of All the Stars and Teeth brings life to a highly romantic, gothic-infused world of wealth, desire, and betrayal. Orphaned as a baby, 19-year-old Signa has been raised by a string of guardians, each one more interested in her wealth than her well-being, and each has met an untimely end. Her remaining relatives are the elusive Hawthorns, an eccentric family living at Thorn Grove, an estate both glittering and gloomy. Its patriarch mourns his late wife through wild parties, while his son grapples for control of the family's waning reputation, and his daughter suffers from a mysterious illness. But when their mother's restless spirit appears claiming she was poisoned, Signa realizes that the family she depends on could be in grave danger and enlists the help of a surly stable boy to hunt down the killer. However, Signa's best chance of uncovering the murder is an alliance with Death himself, a fascinating, dangerous shadow who has never been far from her side. Though he's made her life a living heck, Death shows Signa that her growing connection may be more powerful and more irresistible than she ever dared imagine. So that's the summary for Belladonna, and not the second one, as I haven't read the first book, so I don't want to read the summary of the second one. So this next book was just a free giveaway that they had by Simon & Schuster. So depending on the publisher, they do things kind of differently. Simon & Schuster was just kind of doing what they used to do many years ago, which was just kind of doing random times that you line up, and if you are, in line early enough, then you get the free book. Versus Penguin, where they started doing when the floor opens in the morning, you have to go to their line and you're able to pick like tickets up for the ticketed giveaways, because I think mostly the Penguin ones are signed giveaways, versus Simon & Schuster, which they're just kind of giving away the books. And then there's, of course, the other publishers, and they do different things, but those were the two that I mostly frequented this year. And yeah, so this one, Curious Tides by Pascal Lascelles, I think her name is. That was one of them. It's been on my list for forever, and so I was really excited to actually get an actual book of it. Here's the blurb. Ninth House meets a deadly education in this gorgeous dark academia fantasy following a teen mage who must unravel the truth behind the secret society that may have been involved in her classmates' deaths. Emery might be a student at the prestigious Aldrin College for Lunar Magics, but her healing abilities have always been mediocre at best, until a treacherous night in the Dovermere Sea Caves leaves a group of her classmates dead and her as the only survivor. Now Emery is plagued by strange, impossible powers that no healer should possess, powers that would ruin her life if the wrong person were to discover them. To gain control of these new abilities, Emery enlists the help of the school's most reclusive student, Baz, a boy already well versed in the deadly nature of darker magic, whose sister happened to be one of the drowned students and Emery's best friend. Determined to find the truth behind the drownings and the cult-like secret society she's convinced her classmates were involved in, Emery is faced with even more questions when the supposedly drowned students start washing ashore, alive, only for them each immediately to die horrible, magical deaths. And Emery is not the only one seeking answers. When her new magic captures the society's attention, she finds herself drawn into the world of their privilege and power, all while wondering if the truths she's searching for might lead her back to Dovermere to face the fate she was never meant to escape. I've really been in the mood for some dark academia, so I'm really excited to read this book. Like I said, it's been on my list for a while because I've been searching for some dark academia, and I'm really hoping that this satiates my needs. Speaking of A Deadly Education and dark academia, I also received a copy of A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This was another signed giveaway from Penguin. I was super excited about it. Even though I own the ebooks and the physical copies, I was really excited to get another one because I love this series so much. I have an episode I did about it, I think maybe last season or so, or a couple seasons ago. It is one of my favorite series, hands down. I just did a re-listen actually a little bit ago because, again, I've been craving some dark academia books, some fantasy dark academia books specifically, and it really helped because it was exactly what I wanted. I still want more, but it helped a little bit dull the craving. So go give a listen to that episode if you want, but just for a little summary, here's a quick summary. Lesson 1 of the Scholomance. Learning has never been this deadly. A deadly education is set at Scholomance, a school for the magically gifted where failure means certain death, for real, until one girl, Elle, begins to unlock its many secrets. There are no teachers, no holidays, and no friendships, save strategic ones. Survival is more important than any letter grade, for the school won't allow its students to leave until they graduate, or die. The rules are deceptively simple. Don't walk the halls alone, and beware of the monsters who lurk everywhere. Elle is uniquely prepared for their school's dangers. She may be without allies, but she possesses a dark power strong enough to level mountains and wipe out millions. It would be easy enough for Elle to defeat the monsters that prowl the school. The problem? Her powerful dark magic might also kill all the other students. Love this series so much, and it was so great. The author, Naomi Novik, she was very sweet, so I loved it. The next up is Bonesmith. I'm really sorry, I'm going to butcher this name, but Nikki Pau Preto? Maybe Preto? Perhaps. This was another mystery bag from Simon & Schuster. It is a YA dark fantasy, because again, I've been really in the mood for those, so that I picked out the YA dark fantasy one. Here is the blurb for it. Gideon the Ninth meets the Game of Thrones White Walkers in this dark young adult fantasy about a disgraced ghost fighting warrior who must journey into a haunted wasteland to rescue a kidnapped prince. Ready your blade, defeat the undead. In the Dominions, the dead linger, violent and unpredictable, unless a bonesmith severs the ghost from its earthly remains. For Bonesmith Wren, becoming a Valkyr, a ghost-fighting warrior, is a chance to solidify her place in the noble house of Bone and impress her frequently absent father. But when sabotage causes Ren to fail her qualifying trial, she is banished to the border wall, the last line of defense against a wasteland called the Breach, where the vicious dead roam unchecked. Determined to reclaim her family's respect, Ren gets her chance when a House of Gold prince is kidnapped and taken beyond the wall. To prove that she has what it takes to be a Valkyr, Ren vows to cross the breach and rescue the prince. But to do so, she's forced into an uneasy alliance with one of the kidnappers, a fierce ironsmith called Julian from the exiled House of Iron, the very people who caused the breach in the first place, and the House of the Bone's sworn enemy. As they travel, Ren and Julian spend as much time fighting each other as they do the undead. But when they discover there's more behind the kidnapping than either of them know, they'll need to work together to combat the real Dark Alliance that is brewing between the living and the undead. Next up, we have A Door in the Dark by Scott Rankin, perhaps? Rankin? I'm so sorry. This was also one of those mystery bags, and this is another YA dark fantasy. One of Us is Lying meets A Deadly Education in this fantasy thriller that follows 6 teenage wizards as they fight to make it home alive after a malfunctioning spell leaves them stranded in the wilderness. Ren Monroe has spent 4 years proving she's one of the best wizards in her generation, but top marks at Balmeric University will mean nothing if she fails to get recruited into one of the major houses. Enter Theo Brood. If being rich were a sin, he'd already be halfway to heck. After a failed and disastrous party trick, fate has the two of them crossing paths at the public Waxway portal the day before holidays. Theo's punishment is to travel home with the scholarship kids, which doesn't sit well with any of them. A fight breaks out. In the chaos, the portal spell malfunctions. All 6 students are snatched from the safety of the school's campus and set down in the middle of nowhere, and one of them is dead on arrival. If anyone can get them through the punishing wilderness with limited magical reserves, it's Ren. She's been in survival mode her entire life, but no magic could prepare her for the tangled secrets the rest of the group is harboring, or for what's following them through the dark woods. This one actually sounds really good, and I'm pretty excited about it. I also got in one of the YA romantasy mystery bags that I got, Powerful by Lauren Roberts. This is actually a novella that takes place during Powerless, so instead I'm going to read the summary on Powerless, which I don't actually have, so I will have to either buy it or rent it on Libby. Anyway, so here is the summary for Powerless. She is the very thing he spent his whole life hunting. He is the very thing she spent her whole life pretending to be. Only the extraordinary belong in the kingdom of Ilia, the exceptional, the empowered, the elites. The powers these elites had possessed for decades were graciously gifted to them by the plague, though not all were fortunate enough to both survive the sickness and reap the reward. Those born ordinary are just that, ordinary. And when the king decreed that all ordinaries be banished in order to preserve his elite society, lacking an ability suddenly became a crime, making Peyton Gray a felon by fate and a thief by necessity. Surviving in the slums as an ordinary is no simple task, and Peyton knows this better than most. Having been trained by her father to be overly observant since she was a child, Peyton poses as a psychic in the crowded city, blending in with the elites as best she can in order to stay alive and out of trouble. Easier said than done. When Peyton unsuspectingly saves one of Ilia's princes, she finds herself thrown into the purging trials. The brutal competition exists to showcase the elite's powers, the very thing Peyton lacks. If the trials and the opponents within them don't kill her, the prince she's fighting feelings for certainly will if he discovers what she is. Completely ordinary. So that one has kind of been on my list, but also kind of not because I've heard mixed things, but I'll still read it now that I have the novella. Next up is the first ARC that I received. By the time this episode comes out, the book will be out. It comes out in a couple days, September 17th. This is a YA dark fantasy and LGBTQ. This is called A Dark and Drowning Tide by Allison Saft. A sharp-tongued folklorist must pair up with her academic rival to solve their mentor's murder in this lush and enthralling sapphic fantasy romance from the New York Times bestselling author of A Far Wilder Magic. Lorelei Caskell, a folklorist with a quick temper and an even quicker wit, is on an expedition with 6 eccentric nobles in search of a fabled spring. The magical spring promises untold power, which the king wants to harness to secure his reign of an embattled country of Brunistad. Lorelei is determined to use this opportunity to prove herself and make her wildest, most impossible dream come true. to become a naturalist, able to travel freely to land she's only ever read about. The expedition gets off to a harrowing start when its leader, Lorelai's beloved mentor, is murdered in her quarters aboard their ship. The suspects are her 5 remaining expedition mates, each with their own motive. The only person Lorelai knows must be innocent is her longtime academic rival, the insufferably gallant and maddeningly beautiful Sylvia von Wolf. Now in charge of the expedition, Lorelai must find the spring before the murderer strikes again, and a coup begins in earnest. But there are other dangers lurking in the forest that rearrange themselves at night, rivers with slumbering dragons waiting beneath the water, and shape-shifting beasts out for blood. As Lorelai and Sylvia grudgingly work together to uncover the truth and resist their growing feelings for one another, they discover that their professor has had secrets of her own, secrets that make Lorelai question whether justice is worth pursuing or if this kingdom is worth saving at all. Next up is another YA dark fantasy from the mystery bag that I got. This is called A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth. Choose your player. The Ironborn half-fae outcast of her royal fae family, a tempestuous fury, exiled to Earth from the immortal realm and heck-bent on revenge, a dutiful fae prince determined to earn his place on the throne, the princess brooding guardian burdened with a terrible secret. For centuries, the 8 courts of folk have lived among us, concealed by magic and bound by law to do no harm to humans. This arrangement has long kept the peace in the courts, until a series of gruesome and ritualistic murders rocks the city of Toronto and threatens to expose fairies to the human world. 4 queer teens, each who hold a key piece of the truth behind these murders, must form a tenuous alliance in their effort to track down the mysterious killer behind these crimes. If they fail, they risk the destruction of the fairy and human worlds alike. If that's not enough, there's a war brewing between the mortal and immortal realms, and one of these teens is destined to tip the scales. The only question is, which way? Wish them luck. They're going to need it. Next up is another YA romantasy from the mystery bag. This one is called Sweet and Bitter Magic by Adrienne Tooley. In this debut fantasy, a witch cursed to never love meets a girl hiding her own dangerous magic, and the two strike a dangerous bargain to save their queendom. Tamsin is the most powerful witch of her generation, but after committing the worst magical sin, she's exiled by the ruling coven and cursed with the inability to love. The only way she can get those feelings back, even for just a little while, is to steal love from others. Wren is a source, a rare kind of person who is made of magic, despite being unable to use it herself. Sources are required to train with the coven as soon as they discover their abilities, but Wren, the only caretaker to her ailing father, has spent her life hiding her secret. When a magical plague ravages the queendom, Wren's father falls victim. To save him, Wren proposes a bargain. If Tamsin will help her catch the dark witch responsible for creating the plague, then Wren will give Tamsin her love for her father. Of course, love bargains are a tricky thing, and these two have a long, perilous journey ahead of them. That is, if they don't kill each other first. Next up, we're just going to be switching into mostly just fantasies, but there's a couple other, but these are just kind of more adult fiction, I guess. Not young adult, but regular old fiction. First up is The Verifiers by Jane Peck. This was a free giveaway. I think that was actually by Penguin. They just had some books to give away. So, yeah. This is a thriller, and it's another LGBTQ book. Introducing a sharp-witted heroine for 21st century, a new amateur sleuth exploring the landscape, both physical and virtual, of New York in a debut novel about love, technology, and murder. Claudia Lynn is used to disregarding her fractious family's model minority expectations. She has no interest in finding either a conventional career or a nice Chinese boy. She's also used to keeping secrets from them, such as that she prefers girls, and that she's been stealth recruited by Veracity, a referrals-only online dating detective agency. A lifelong mystery reader who wrote her senior thesis on Jane Austen, Claudia believes she's landed her ideal job. But when a client goes missing, Claudia breaks protocol to investigate, and uncovers a maelstrom of personal and corporate deceit. Part literary mystery, part family story, The Verifiers is a clever and incisive examination of how technology shapes our choices and the nature of romantic love in the digital age. Next up is another arc that has already come out on August 27th, and it is a dark fantasy. This is The Crimson Crown by Heather Walter. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the wickedest of them all? Snow White's Dark Queen tells her side of the story in the first book of a queer, witchy duology that reimagines the classic fairy tale from the author of Malice. An alluring, vengeful origin story that brings tremendous dimension to a classic fairy tale. Chloe Gong, New York Times bestselling author of Immortal Longings. Legends tell of a witch who became a queen, the heartless villain in the story of Snow White. But now the wicked queen is stepping out of Snow White's shadow to become the heroine of her own legend. Her real once upon a time begins when she is just Aelith, a young witch who lives in the forest with her coven. The witches practice their magic in secret, hiding from the White King and his brutal war against witchcraft. Aelith, however, faces a war of her own. Her magical gifts have yet to reveal themselves, and as the threat of the royal huntsman intensifies, Aelith fears she will never become the witch her coven needs. To prove herself, Aelith sets out on a perilous quest that sends her to the White Palace, a decadent world of drama and deceit. There, Aelith encounters an unlikely figure from her past, Jaquetta, a witch who had once held Aelith's heart and betrayed her. As events at the palace escalate, Aelith finds herself caught in the web of the White King, whose dark charisma is as dangerous as the sinister force that seems to be haunting the palace, and perhaps even Aelith herself. With the threat of discovery looming, Aelith and Jaquetta must set aside the wounds of their past and work together to survive. As she uncovers the secrets of the White Court and those of her own heart, Aelith must find the strength to transform into someone she never imagined she could be, a powerful witch, the very wickedest of them all. Definitely pretty interesting. I do love a fairy tale retelling, so this is kind of not quite a fairy tale retelling in the ways that I usually like to read, but it should still be interesting. Next up is actually a middle grade novel, and this was another free giveaway arc that comes out October of 2024. There might be a date set, but I'm not positive. And this is Keeper Chance and the Conundrum of Chaos by Alex Ivanovich. For graduates of Percy Jackson comes the adventure-filled story of an average boy offered a life of villainy that's about good versus evil, mischief versus mayhem, and making your mark on the world by acclaimed author Alex Ivanovich. If you've ever lost a sock in the dryer, it might have been the work of the Evil Villains International League. Evil. And if your feet smell so bad they keep you from making friends, good news, you might be invited to join. After growing up in the care of his nagging grandmother and coasting through school with a mediocre GPA, Keeper Chance gets invited to try out for a spot in his local chapter of Evil. Keeper's not sure that his unremarkable life makes him villain material, but things get more remarkable and fast when Keeper and another new recruit, Toby, face the chapter's first test, and disasters begin to snowball. As Cookies and members of Evil go missing, a mysterious girl named Y, who doesn't miss anything, joins Keeper and Toby's efforts. Despite the urgency of his mission, Keeper still can't shake the question of why he was chosen for the League when he's nothing special. As Keeper races against the clock to save his new friends, nothing is easy and nothing is ever as it seems. Can he uncover his true nature in time to ensure the survival of villainy, or does his true destiny follow a different path? Next up are a couple of nonfiction books that I picked up. They were buy one, get one free on Sunday on the last day at, I think, Running Publishers at their booth. And this one is called Freaks, Gleeks, and Dawson's Creek, How 17 Shows Transformed Television by Thea Glassman. This is the untold stories of 7 revolutionary teen shows: The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, My So-Called Life, Dawson's Creek, Freaks and Geek, The OC, Friday Night Lights, and Glee, that shaped the course of modern television and our pop culture landscape forever. The modern television landscape is defined by influential and ambitious shows for and about teenagers. Groundbreaking series like Euphoria, Sex Education, and Pen 15 dominate award seasons and lead the way when it comes to progressive, diverse, and creative storytelling. So how did we get here from Beverly Hills 90210? In Freaks, Gleeks, and Dawson's Creek, entertainment journalist Thea Glassman takes readers behind the scenes of 7 of the most culturally significant series of the last 3 decades, drawing on dozens of new interviews with showrunners, casts, crew members, and more. These shows not only launched the careers of such superstars as Will Smith, Michael B. Jordan, Claire Danes, and Seth Rogen, but they also took young people seriously, proving that teen TV could be smart, revolutionary, and important, and stay firmly entrenched in pop culture long after it finished airing. And while many critics insist that prestige dramas like The Sopranos and Mad Men paved the way for television, some of the most groundbreaking work is actually happening inside the fictional hallways of high schools across America in teen shows whose impact remains visible on our screens today. It just sounded really interesting. I love reading and listening to people talk about TV. Obviously, it's why I have this kind of a podcast myself. And so I thought it'd be a really interesting read. Next up is, of course, another nonfiction that I got with the Buy One Get One Free. And this is K-Drama School, a pop culture inquiry into why we love Korean television by Grace Young. Again, love Korean dramas, so this one piqued my interest. From the Emmy Award-winning Squid Game to streaming sensations like The Glory and Crash Landing on You, Korean television has emerged onto the global pop culture scene as compelling television. But what exactly makes these shows so irresistibly bingeable? And what can we learn about our societies and ourselves from watching them? From stand-up comedian and media studies PhD Grace Young comes a rollicking deep dive into the cultural significance of Korean television. K-Drama School analyzes everything from common tropes like amnesia and slapping to conspicuous product placements of Subway sandwiches and coffee, to representations of disability, race, and gender, to what Korea's war-torn history says about South Korea's media output and the stories being told on screen. With chapters organized by lessons, each one inquiring into a different theme of Korean television, K-Drama School offers a groundbreaking exploration into the singular form of entertainment, from an author who writes with humor and heart about shows that spur tears and laughter, keeping us glued to the TV while making fans of us all. Shows discussed are Squid Game, Sky Castle, Crash Course in Romance, Extraordinary Attorney Woo, My Sister, Something in the Ring, One Spring Night, DP, The Lonely and Great God, Autumn in My Heart, Winter Sonata, Our Blues, and more. And there you have it. Those are my thoughts, I suppose, on all of the books that I got from Comic-Con this year. Pretty big haul. Only a handful that were free. I bought actually quite a bit, but that's okay. Thank you so much for joining me on this first episode of Season 5. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr at Mixed Media Reviews Podcast. Please leave me a comment to let me know if you are excited about any of these books or if there's any that you had picked up if you went to Comic-Con. Let me know what you're reading. You can also find me anywhere you find your podcasts, probably, though using Spotify would be very helpful. Please join me next week, or I'm going to be talking about a TV show, and we'll see what that is. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye!